Hello and welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler. Today, I thought I'd go over basically the state of the globe, uh, conflict zones, see what's going on and escalatory nature thereof. There's no particular order to this other than I'm going to start in Canada. That's where I'm located. Head south, all the way down, jump over to Africa, head to Europe, then the Middle East, then Asia. That's generally the plan I've got. But, subject to change because some of these places need to be talked about in context of other places. But, whatever. Let's get started. So, Canada. There might be some shit. It's not going to get kinetic. Let me be real there. It's not getting kinetic or any more kinetic than it has, let's say, crazy left-wing protests. I suspect Canada's going to have a part to play, at least a little bit, in the No Kings protest that is coming later this week. I believe it's Saturday or something. Get into that. But I think Canadians could have their own version of the No Kings protest because, globalists are going to coordinate globally. There may be, they very well could be foreign agitators at the No King protest. So, very well could be a couple Canadian dipshits involved in there. But other than that, Canada is going to continue to be squeezed between America and China. We saw this past week when, after Carney's trip to Washington, D.C., and it looked like there's more friendly relations on the way with America, slowly but surely, you have to rehabilitate the craziness that is the liberal hive mind in Canada. Eventually they'll come around that Carney, he totally got a good deal with America. He got one over on Trump. That'll be the narrative most likely. But until then, and even after then, economically, we will be used as a wedge between China and the United States by either side against the other one. So expect that to continue, and we saw this really play out as soon as that meeting ended. The Chinese ambassador to Canada said, "Hey, we'll take away the canola tariffs if you take away the EV tariffs." My response was sure, we should absolutely take away the EV tariffs and just outright ban them. Chinese EVs are highly combustible on their own. Earlier in the year, they self-ignited on a boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I have not found any information as of yet. I really haven't been looking too hard, but I have no update on that. That presumably that's still burning, just floating, because the only way to really deal with it would be to sink it, and nobody's gonna do that. That's a bad idea. We move down to the United States. The No Kings protest this week very much looks like it's going to build the narrative that Trump is a king. He is, the next King George III for the Americans. They have to lead an insurgency against him and overthrow the king that is oppressing the people. It looks like the narrative, it is going to be insurrectionary. In a narrative, we'll have to wait and see what actually happens, but that's probably the narrative they're going to go with. You're going to see, continued baiting out of Trump of forcing him to crack down in Democrat areas, which is working well for Trump. The American people are kind of sick and tired of the crime and the mass immigration that happened, and they just kind of want things to go back to normal. And so Trump's base is really on board with that. Even Democrats are on board with that. I can't remember, was it Rasmussen Reports? Mark Mitchell, the pollster there, has data on that. It's really, really good. Um, if we move into Central and South America, as I stated in yesterday's video, um, it looks like the United States military is ramping up in Puerto Rico to get ready to launch some sort of strikes. And with the economic play of buying Argentina, forcing China out, uh, the ramp up in rhetoric with Venezuela from, going from boats to, hey, now it looks like they'll start targeting uh, the sovereign land of Venezuela if they feel there are drug boats or not just drug boats, but drug cartels and so on and so forth. So I would and before I get into that, the Venezuelan lady who won the Nobel Peace Prize is a huge supporter of regime change. So that is a massive telegraph move that the neocon faction that has very much control of Trump is going to attempt something with Venezuela at the very least. With Trump's statements regarding being at war with the drug cartels, you can very much easily see that, there'll be anywhere from limited actions to major actions involved in more countries in Central and South America, including Mexico, even though that's technically North America. Like anywhere where you see massive amounts of drug cartels or drug cartel control is, I would suspect, on the table. So expect that there's going to be massive consequences for this. The South American people are still really pissed about the Monroe Doctrine and all the involvement the United States has. It's why, and that the United States supported right wing authoritarianism for so long. It's why all these countries lean so far to the left. You could see massive rise in left wing politics down in these areas. So, but also I would suspect there's going to be more plays and more deals in areas where they have, like, I would suspect there might be an offer on the table for, say, somewhere like Colombia, due to gold and silver and so on and forth. Because again, critical minerals are becoming a massive power play, as what's going on with China and the United States and the restrictions of exports from China. So I would suspect there'd be like a ramp up in, deals that we saw with Argentina into other countries that have these critical minerals and metals, even if it's relatively trace amounts. It's why I think there will be a deal now with Canada 100%. I was always suspecting there was going to be a deal with Canada, but I suspect there's going to be a bigger deal. Now that's a long-term thinking, because getting mines up and running with in the Canada perspective, like a mine can take 10, 15 years to get up and running where you hit the pay dirt. Keep that in mind. So the next area is going to be Africa. I think Africa is going to have massive destabilization and stabilization efforts from China and the United States primarily. Russia will be involved because Wagner's already in there. But what this will do, or why, is because lots of critical minerals and metals are there in mines that are currently operational. So I would suspect you won't probably hear about it, but I would continue to see more and more deployment of, say, Green Berets in all over Africa, probably other special operators as well. And probably deals being made with, say, the Egyptian government, just because they have a massive buildup of an army, so that you can then exude control over, say, Libya, Sudan, and hopefully maybe keep what's going on in the Middle East, that's, north and to the east of that, under control. Probably not, but you can do that. You've got, like, American bases are all over. So, but I do suspect, like, what's going on in the Congo and Rwanda will get worse. That looks to be like it's backed by major players. I would suspect, places like Chad, Nigeria as well. Um, South Africa could probably become a hotspot. Like, basically all of Africa's, every country there's got something that is desperately needed. For the most part, it's just, who's going to make the moves. All right. Um, and why? Like, you could very easily see, say, Chinese PMCs or Chinese, straight up, the People's Liberation Army, walk into, say, somewhere like Somalia to get a foothold, and like, or say Somaliland, and use that as a wedge to take over all of Somalia, and then, push westward. You can see stuff like that, or you can see, you'll probably see more Belt and Road Initiative stuff ramp up, even though China's economy is not very well, and I do not think Xi survives very long. Like Hu Jintao, we've all suspected he's been dead for years, but or a couple years now. Um, I don't think Xi can survive this, but I'll get into that. If I head up into Europe, Europe is just destabilizing itself. France has got its confidence of government going on, continuing to go on. Germany is having a similar fate. Um, Spanish, earlier in the year, they were having theirs. Poland is relatively stable, but the Poles are, or at least the government is itching for a fight with the Russians. And, the UK is doing its stuff. Like, Keir Starmer somehow made. I was just listening to this like a couple hours ago. Before Keir Starmer came out in favor of digital IDs, it was a bare majority of UK citizens were in favor of it. Now it's universally reviled. So, you could very much see Keir Starmer getting the boot. You might not see an election, but you could see him removed. You could also see an election if confidence completely collapses and, Labor is forced into that. And that's all the undertone for what's going on in Ukraine between the Ukrainians and the Russians and the West in general. Um, Russia just had a massive strike against specifically, I believe it was Kiev's energy infrastructure. Again, flexing their muscles, showing, hey, look, we can destroy you. We are holding back to a certain extent. We are fighting this war in a way that benefits us. I also was reading a report from Secretary General of NATO, who's like, "Oh yeah, Russia's trying to eventually going to roll over all of Europe and invade and coming on the heels of the what was it? The false flags, which looks like domestic operations, and the one, I think it was in Germany, maybe it was in the Netherlands. It was just like a dude flying their drone, screwing around, trying to create this panic. Like this, the Europeans have worked themselves up into a tizzy over Russia. You could very much see them do something stupid, but the Russians try to keep reminding everybody, hey, let's ratchet down the tensions here, because they are winning that war. It is either Ukraine is going to concede and make concessions, or Russia will outright win the war. Like, that is the point where we are at. All right, because NATO's not going to get involved, because I know for it, I suspect that Trump understands that if he gets involved in that war, more so than they are, like, not just the special operations that are going on in Ukraine, but if they're like boots on the ground, American boots on the ground, his presidency is done. Done. Like, very much like what if he got involved with a war in Iran. He would be removed from office, that whole procedure, and then thrown in jail for starting an illegal war. He would be the only president where that would happen, but it would happen. There was, Trump keeps going, maybe I'll give these Ukrainians the Tomahawks, and it's not really viable because the Tomahawk missile is mainly designed for use from naval vessels, like specifically submarines. So there's not many ways to launch them from the ground. And I don't see America convincing Turkey to open the strait for a large enough naval presence in the Black Sea so that the Americans feel comfortable firing those things off. And there's no Ukrainian Navy, so to speak of, right now. So I don't see that happening. I think it's Trump doing what Trump's been doing, acting tough, which is going to get him in no end of trouble if he continues to do that. To get the Russians to the table, and the Russians have been at the table the entire time saying, these are our terms, you do not cross them. Maybe we'll bend on some of them, maybe we won't. Like, I believe Putin's in the process of walking back what's the state, the current, or the previous, how do I put this? Putin has previously said, yes, Ukraine can join the EU. He has now walked that back to a certain extent. He is now very much closer with the hardliners. So as this war continues to go on, and as the West continues to be the West and melt down and say stupid things and do stupid things, expect Putin to continually walk closer to the hardliners in his country. And those people, some of them are saying, fire the goddamn nukes. Like, I don't think Putin would do that offensively. The dead hand switch that the Russians have, absolutely. But, as this continues to go on, Putin is becoming more and more radicalized. The Russian population is becoming more and more radicalized. Like, it's a bad thing to happen. All right? Russia has the most nukes on the planet. Moving into the Middle East, we got a ceasefire deal between Hamas and the Israelis. I'm not entirely sure how long it will last, for multiple reasons. Like, I don't think Trump is going to stay focused on Bibi long enough to keep Bibi in check. And Hamas has, like, every reason to start stuff back up again, because, like, the deal on the table is basically their destruction. I don't know a power faction that has willingly done that, other than, say, oh god, what's his name? Is it Khrushchev, the last, is it president of the Soviet Union, who destroyed his power faction against their advice? There may or may not be a long peace process for this, for what's going on in Gaza, and this path obviously leads to a creation of a Palestinian state. again, the hardliners in Israel are currently in power, and they want that not to happen at all, ever. So it's one of those situations where both sides have a lot of reasons to go back to war. Like, it may be a situation in which, they play for time, lick their wounds, rearm, and then go. Um, I find it extremely odd that we're having this big fanfare over a ceasefire deal. I think it's Trump trying to bind everybody together um, into keeping the peace, because it will now politically backfire on everybody a little bit. Um, but even then, Israel's probably still going to do stuff in Syria because their objectives haven't been met. They're now, pretending to play defense for the Druze Christians in the region, being like, "Oh, we're the only ones stopping the wholesale slaughter of Christians. We're using the Israeli Air Force to do so." And who are the ones who made the regime change that led to this? Iran, I think, is back on the table again, or at least being considered with Bibi and other places, because Trump made the statement of wanting Bagram back a little while back, and now, of course, you have Pakistan and the Afghanis going to war, or with not the Afghanis, the Taliban and the Pakistanis. So you could very well easily see a path for the Americans to re-invade Afghanistan with the partnership of the Pakistanis, crush the Taliban, or, put them back into hiding relatively quickly, take over Bagram Air Base, and then be in a position to strong arm Iran, or attempt to, and then have a whole nother war kick off. Then if we go into Asia, I presume there's going to be more proxy stuff in Asian countries. You're going to have, the United States continue to do their regime change operations all over the area to attempt to isolate China. China's going to do all their shenanigans. Their fishing boats where they used a patrol boat, not a patrol boat, maybe a frigate, and rammed their own frigate while trying to ram, was it an Indonesian fishing trawler or a Filipino fishing trawler, something like that? Taiwan is still going to be a point of contention. The Americans are going to play it up, or the neocon Americans are going to play it up that the Chinese are going to invade any day now. Their standard line that they've been playing for 30 years. China is going to continue to do subversive operations. They have a severe economic problem that is going to hinder what they're able to do. And they've got serious domestic problems that are going to continue to ramp up. The housing crisis that is ongoing, the unemployment crisis in the country, the demographics between men and women is a continued freaking problem. The fact that Xi declared late stage capitalism and that now we can finally hit full on communism in like 2019, and that's backfired on him. Like, Xi's losing power. That's why he continues to do political purges all over the country. And, there's that continued rumor that he recently had a stroke. I do not see Xi, again, I don't think he survives this. I think he ends up like Hu Jintao. Oh, yes, the supreme leader has to be removed. He's got some issues. We bring in, I honestly don't know who would be next in line, but they bring in the next guy. Maybe it's a lady this time. And Xi is never heard from again. So you have to assume he's whacked. But with the ramp up in rhetoric, or not just rhetoric, but in moves by Donald Trump to secure the American home front and weaken China, I suspect it's going to get nasty. China's not in a position where they could actually go kinetic. They can't project power like that. They may have the largest, fleet on paper, but when your fleet can't do maneuvers and all your tech is stolen from the Americans and built at even a lower quality than, say, the F-35s, that if they don't have proper maintenance procedures, well, you can read the stories of them crashing, or the Osprey having similar problems. Like, they're just, if you have to do like extensive maintenance procedures like the Germans had to do with their tanks in World War II, you've designed a fatally flawed product. You should go back to the drawing board and make a better one. Make it more reliable. Just thought. They're also hard to produce. Like, America can, send the Pacific Fleet, redirect another fleet and another fleet, and just have it like parked in like the South China Sea, the Philippine Sea, and like off the coast of where would that be? Like, is that, Jesus, I don't know. Let me just pull up. I have another tab. Oh god, where'd the tab go? Jesus, where'd the window go? Oh god, I closed the window. I had another window so I could zoom in on Japan, but like, if you look at the main islands of Japan, the lower part that's quite west, close to China, you could have a fleet there. It's also the Philippines. Like, I got a map up. Like, what is that? The Ryukyu Islands, say somewhere there. A fleet in the Philippine Sea, and yeah, the South China Sea. Like, you've effectively cut off China, and you, like, again, an American naval fleet is an impressive force. The heart of it being an aircraft carrier that can destroy nations. You got 3 of them parked there. You got serious problem for China. So yeah, I think there's likely escalatory things going on, but most of it will be proxy wars in far off lands, insurrection attempts in the United States, and probably all over Europe. And you'll have the continued geopolitical chess match between the globalists, whatever counts as America, like think MAGA, America First, and China, to get control and be, the controller of the globe, be the world hegemon, and like that's going to continue. But like the Chinese really can't do it. Like, think about it. They've been doing their Belt and Road for like 10 years, or 10 plus years now, right? And they've seeded yuan debt everywhere they can. And yet the yuan has maybe had, I think, a 5 or 10% uptick in being adopted versus all the other currencies. Yeah, your yuan is not going anywhere. The RMB is just dog shit. So just end it. So that's the video for today. Just a quick analysis all over the world of what's going on, what could happen, what's likely, how I see things going. I really do think Bibi is, now that he's got a Gaza thing, there's a very good likelihood of war in Iran again. Like, Bibi being like, they broke the ceasefire, they've got these thingies here, we got to blow them up, or, hey, we didn't actually destroy the nuclear production facilities, so we're going in again. And then, shit, damn, we overextended. The Iranians are better equipped than we thought. Daddy America, please help us. I really do see that is the biggest threat, I think. I mean, other than what's obviously, in my opinion, going to happen to the drug cartels. Like, that is a bad thing. Not going after drug cartels, but like the fact that the drug cartels are a proxy of Taiwan and or not Taiwan, China, and you're going to have a proxy war all over Central and South America. Proxy war between the Americans and the Chinese. That's a recipe for disaster. Um, but who knows? We'll see. Anyways, that's the video for today. Hope you had enjoyed the video. Hope you had a good day. See you tomorrow. I have no idea. Maybe I'll have to talk about Mark Carney or something. I don't know. We'll see what I find on reading the news in the next couple of hours. Until then, have a good day.